Right now, I'm in Prague, learning about their occult history of magic and alchemy. In 2002, some construction work due to a flood led to the discovery of a secret underground layer filled with the tools and objects of alchemists from hundreds of years ago. This mystical laboratory is recognized by UNESCO as being a cultural heritage site. And it's also a museum, so we can go check it out.
So just up here is the old lair of an alchemist that was discovered in 2002 due to a flood. They had no idea this place existed. And here underneath the city are all kinds of tunnels and interesting passageways. And you could just imagine these people walking through with nothing but torches to light their way after a night of, who knows, going crazy in the dark.
We want to go to the museum.
Yes, please.
We have a guided tours in English or Czech.
English is fine.
Yes, and the future tour will be in 7 minutes. In
Okay,
English.
so I just hang out here?
Around the shop has all sorts of witchy paraphernalia like potions and plants and some tourist gifts. But the reality of this place is a lot crazier. Men in shrouds shuffling through the shadows of dark tunnels with strange objects. I'm excited to see what else is here.
My name is Daniela, and for the next approximately half an hour I will be your guide here. During the tour it is allowed to take pictures in our entire museum, so it's not a problem here, and of course if you have questions during the tour you can ask me.
Okay, cool.
Now I will start this tour with a little bit of history, or let's say origins of this house and this place, and it's actually quite important to start with that because we are currently standing in the second oldest house in Prague. The first written mentions about the settlement in this area in general come from year 870 AD, and the first mentions about the building itself, also its oldest part, the basement, it all comes from the end of the 9th century as well. Of course, the most important time period for this house came much later. It was in the 16th and 17th century during reign of the king and emperor Rudolf II, who had two reasons for why he wanted to have alchemical laboratories located here. Firstly, 3 tunnels led from under this building, and they connected this house to some strategic places in Prague. For example, one of those tunnels led almost to the Prague castle where the king lived, so he could very easily visit this house and our laboratories as well. And then secondly, there was a trading road called Via Grande running in front of the house, and said road was used by alchemists, scientists, and also merchants and traders who were coming here and bringing here goods like herbs or spices that our alchemists were later using during their experiments. So it was very useful and very convenient not only for the king but also for alchemists themselves to have laboratories here. Now, Rudolf II, whom I've already mentioned, wasn't the only person who supported alchemy in our country, but given the fact that amongst other titles he was a king of Bohemia and emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, he definitely was the most important person who supported alchemists. Originally was his royal court in Vienna in Austria, but Prague was his favorite city, so he decided to move here, and Rudolf used to invite here scientists, various artists, fortune tellers for example, and other people, so basically in his time, Prague became a center of culture and science. It definitely wasn't a secret to anyone that Rudolf himself was very interested in alchemy, occult sciences, and sciences in general. But of course, in the 16th and 17th century, the Catholic Church especially didn't support such things like alchemy, so this might seem as a bit of a problem for Rudolf. Rudolf, he was used to do whatever he wanted his entire life. So in this case, he actually decided to continue with support of alchemy, which he kept on doing almost until his death in year 1612. But unfortunately, Rudolf wasn't married, which meant that even though he had many children, they were all illegitimate and weren't allowed to sit on the throne, which was an opportunity for Rudolf's younger brother Matthias, who took the throne in year 1611. And Matthias didn't support alchemy at all, so when Rudolf died that 1 year later, the greatest era of alchemy in our country basically ended. So in or later after Rudolf's death, alchemists decided to leave and they went to countries like mainly France or England. Now, for this room here, officially it was a study room. We can, however, call it also a reception of sorts. Alchemists used it for inviting guests, like various thinkers or traders. And we have some interesting pieces of furniture here. The biggest piece of furniture is the bookcase. For example, chair behind the table, which was created in Venice in Italy back in the 16th century. Then later it was brought here. And then at the other side of the room, there is a bench for guests who were invited here by our alchemists. Then, however, the most important piece of furniture in this room is the chandelier. And the chandelier is quite interesting. It's decorated with 3 faces or masks. They're all the same, they represent one person, and even though it looks like it could be the devil or Lucifer or some kind of demon, it's actually Moses from the Old Testament, which might seem a bit strange, especially because of those horns. That's why people usually think that it's some kind of evil creature. And well, the fact that Moses is sometimes depicted with horns originates in the 4th century AD, when St. Jerome translated the Old Testament from Hebrew to Latin. And in Hebrew there is a word keren that translates as horns, but it also has another meaning. The second meaning of this word is ray of light, which can be seen as a symbol of power and knowledge. So what probably happened there was that St. Jerome used a sort of wrong translation in this case and described Moses as having horns. And well, Moses really looks kind of evil here with those horns, with his expression, he's frowning and everything. But actually his presence here is very, very positive. Many alchemists saw Moses as one of the first alchemists who ever lived, so he was a very important person for them. And also, just like in the Old Testament, here too should Moses serve as a kind of a connection or mediator between heaven and earth. At the same time, the chandelier is in a way connected with 4 natural elements that you can see painted on the ceiling. So it's fire, earth, water and air. In the center of each of these elements there is something like a golden sun or golden star. The 5th sun is at the bottom of the chandelier. And according to our alchemists, these 4 elements, they were supposed to attract some sort of positive energy from the universe. Those suns then transported this energy to the chandelier, and through the 5th sun, the energy was channeled down to one of our laboratories where various elixirs were distilled, and alchemists believed that thanks to this energy, their elixirs will have some sort of a special power and that they will work better. So this very nicely shows that even though alchemy was considered to be a science, it also had a supernatural or mystical part. It was all tied together back then.
Do you find any mushroom art or anything carved onto these?
Oh, sorry?
Any like mushrooms?
No, no mushrooms. No.
What about this? Who's this guy down here in these?
It's supposed to be an alchemist, basically, you know. And well, now it's almost time for us to go and see our laboratories, but before we go I actually have to mention one last thing, which is that even during Rudolf's life, when alchemists were supported by the king himself, the church still was able to punish or persecute them in some cases. So still even during Rudolf's reign, alchemists usually worked in secret, their laboratories were hidden, very few people knew about their exact locations, and also for safety reasons, alchemists very often had secret entrances that led to their laboratories. It was quite common that those entrances were guarded by very important mythical creatures that are seen as gatekeepers or guardians of treasures, entrances to another world, to another dimensions, for example. I'm talking about the dragons, and we actually have one of these dragon gatekeepers here in this room. The dragon is here, this one. And even though this dragon is sort of cute and doesn't look exactly intimidating, he still is very good at his job. And while this here, it is slightly modernized, but basically it's the same mechanism as the one that alchemists were using back in their time. So they also had to turn the statue of the dragon every time they wanted to enter our laboratories. So we will go this way.
So this was built like this originally?
Yes. There are little wheels added to the bottom of the door, basically, so that it's easier to open it. So we are now standing in front of our first and our main laboratory. This is where all of the elixirs were distilled in the past. They were distilled on that round furnace in the center of the room, and we can compare those elixirs basically to herbal medicine. They were made from alcohol and herbs, or similar ingredients at least. For example, the most important elixir that was made here, which was elixir of eternal youth, it has between 20 to 30% of alcohol, and it contains 77 different kinds of herbs. The main herb there is milk thistle, which is very good for liver. It serves for detoxification of
What kind?
organisms.
What is it?
Milk thistle. It's in Latin, it's Silybum marianum. It works for liver, basically, really, it's like a natural detox. In the past, actually, when this elixir was made mainly for Rudolf II, who was very sick, he suffered with many diseases. So, as a painkiller, alchemists used to put opium in there, for example. So, in the end, it was quite an interesting combination of also these sort of ingredients mixed with alcohol. And well, at the beginning of the tour, I mentioned that there were 3 tunnels running from under this building. The first tunnel starts in the back of the laboratory. The entrance to the tunnel is around the left corner. And this one was the longest tunnel that led from here. It had approximately 2 kilometers. And in the past, it led underneath the river almost to the Prague castle. There it ended in a stag moat below the castle. And this was the tunnel that Rudolf was using for visiting these laboratories. The tunnel is not functional anymore. In the past, the river wasn't as deep as it is now. It was much more shallow, so it was possible for the tunnel to lead in the direction it did, and under the river especially. But as the river changed its shape during time, the tunnel collapsed. So nowadays it's blocked at like 3 or 4 spots, and then it ends by the river.
And how much of this stuff is original in here?
It's basically half and a half. Usually furnaces, parts of furnaces, tools made of metals. These sort of objects that are very difficult to destroy, they mainly survive. And of course fragile things like old pieces of wooden furniture. We have some exceptions here, of course, but basically in most cases we can follow this half.
And is there like a filtration system? If they were making smoke and stuff in here, was there a way
for example, the smoke from the furnaces here, it was led to the fireplace in the study room. The fireplace, the original one was on a bit different spot than the one that is there now, because the room was slightly bigger in the past. But yeah, the smoke was led from here to the fireplace and then through chimney up and out. Of course, it wasn't 100% effective, but it was helpful at least.
Did you find books here?
Not exactly books, maybe like some their documents.
Yeah. And what language were they written in? Or like
In Latin, maybe.
in Latin. Which one of these like vases are original?
It should be these like 4 very dirty bottles.
These ones at the bottom here?
Yeah.
And this was discovered in 2002?
Yes, and I will basically now talk about how it was discovered. It was discovered thanks to the second tunnel that actually collapsed in 2002 during floods in front of this building. This tunnel, it goes under the staircase, then it continues further to the Old Town Square. And alchemists, like I said, even during Rudolf's life, worked in secret. And then when they finally decided to leave their laboratories, they in general were trying to sort of cover up signs about their presence in certain buildings, about their works. And in many cases, they decided also to close and seal the entrances to their laboratories.
Have you been down there?
A few meters. It's very claustrophobic, actually. So alchemists, they decided to leave this house at the end of the 17th century after a fire, which damaged this building and also buildings around. So it was basically the last straw for our alchemists. And before they left, they sealed that secret entrance behind the bookcase, so it looked like an ordinary wall. There was no trace about the entrance, and this entire underground space here was basically forgotten for more than 300 years until 2002. Next room here, it was another laboratory, and like the first one, this wasn't used for making elixirs. Here alchemists worked with metals, and it sort of is widely known that one of the goals of alchemy was to somehow transform various basic metals into pure gold, which was a very popular goal amongst alchemists. Usually these kinds of experiments were firstly very expensive and also very dangerous, secondly, because alchemists usually were working with the metals like lead or mercury during these kinds of experiments. Of course, we don't suppose that they were successful with actually turning metals into gold. On the other hand, though, alchemists knew about the process of electrolysis, so amongst other things, they were able to make various objects look as if they were made of gold, which might at least partly serve as a proof of their abilities to the king. They were using torches, oil lamps also.
Yeah. What are these? These were added here?
Well, the original plaque was here in the 16th century. This one was added here. The original one was possible to be opened basically like a regular door. Alchemists sealed it, and also this millet plate here is sealed, so it's not possible to open it anymore. But actually, during research, after the flood, people found out that inside of the wall there was some sort of a medieval vault in which alchemists basically left a treasure. What was hidden inside was probably the most exciting and the most important discovery here. Firstly, we found here a small bottle from the 16th century with original elixir of eternal youth still inside, and I will show you this bottle by the end of our tour. Then secondly, alchemists also hid here some documents, approximately 25 pages of parchments. Mainly those parchments included recipes for a few of the elixirs that were made in the first laboratory, so that's how even nowadays we are able to recreate those elixirs. Of course, we're not allowed to make experiments here. The house is actually part of a national heritage, so we didn't get permission. However, nowadays those elixirs are actually being made for us or produced for us by Benedictine monks in monastery near Brno, according to those recipes.
How much restoration was done here?
Well, basically the structure is original with some minor details. Yeah, then like I said, the equipment is half-half. Elixir of memory, elixir of love, an elixir called drinkable or liquid gold. Elixir of memory contains 35 ingredients. The main ingredient there is ginkgo biloba, ginkgo, ginseng, which is very good for brain, for blood circulation in brain. Elixir of love then contains 33 herbs, mainly natural aphrodisiacs. It's basically like a natural boost. And then probably the most interesting elixir that we have here, the drinkable gold. Again, it's alcohol and herbs, but it also contains these golden flakes that were released from herbs and plants, and originally this was supposed to be a cure for every kind of disease. It was supposed to heal mind and body, but it's also said that thanks to the gold inside, it should bring luck and success to its owner. So some people call it elixir of happiness or elixir of prosperity. It is the strongest elixir that we have here. Nowadays it has over 40% of alcohol. In the past it was even stronger. And all four kinds of elixirs, those like versions made by the monks, can be seen in the front room. The front room, I'd like to point out, is decorated in a style of medieval pharmacy, which was there back in the 16th and 17th century. And residents of Prague, commoners, people in general, could buy dried herbs, oils, bandages, and other things related to health in there. The pharmacy, however, also served there to, let's say, sort of cover up or hide the presence of these laboratories. So thanks to the pharmacy, it wasn't that suspicious, but there were so many scientists and traders and other people coming here. Or, of course, those furnaces in our laboratories were producing and releasing lots of smoke all the time, which made many people to ask where did the smoke come from. The pharmacy was able to give an answer to this question, and in this manner it helped to keep these laboratories hidden, just like alchemists intended to.
My name is Dakota. Thank you for watching my YouTube channel, Dakota of Earth, where I travel around the world seeking for the strangest situations I can get into. From shamans in the Amazon jungle, to witches in Romania, to cannibals in India. Click the notification button so you can see my adventures around Earth. Catch you next video.